I thought I was doing everything right. 6 years in the gym, MBA from a top university, six-figure salary at 28. I was the complete package on paper. But here's what nobody tells you about that one mistake that makes women reject you. And it's probably the same mistake that's sabotaging your dating life right now. 3 months ago, I watched the woman I love choose my unemployed, out-of-shape roommate over me. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about attraction. But before I tell you how this story ends, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Stefan, and for most of my adult life, I believed I was winning at life. While other guys were playing video games, I was grinding. While they were partying, I was building myself into what I thought every woman wanted. But there was this gnawing emptiness. Despite all my achievements, despite looking good on paper, I couldn't understand why women would seem interested at first, then suddenly go cold. The pattern was always the same, and it was destroying me from the inside. Then Alice walked into my life, and everything I thought I knew about attraction was about to be shattered in the most brutal way possible. Alice was different. Marketing director, intelligent, beautiful in that effortless way that makes your chest tight just looking at her. When she moved in next door, I knew this was my chance to finally get it right. I had learned from my mistakes. No more being the nice guy. I was going to show her my value up front. Our first conversation lasted 3 hours. We talked about business, travel, life goals. I mentioned my recent promotion, my fitness routine, my investment portfolio, casually, of course. She seemed impressed. She was laughing, asking questions, those beautiful green eyes lighting up when I talked about my achievements. For 2 weeks, it was perfect. Coffee dates where I'd pick up the check without hesitation. Dinners where I'd choose wine that showcased my sophistication. I was being the successful, accomplished man I'd worked so hard to become. Then she met Jake. My roommate Jake. The same Jake who'd been unemployed for 8 months, living off pizza and energy drinks, whose idea of working out was walking to the convenience store. But here's where the story takes a turn that nearly broke me. What I didn't understand then, what no one had ever taught me, is that attraction isn't a logical process. In nature, it's the male peacock who displays his beautiful feathers, hoping to be chosen by the plain female. But human attraction works in reverse. When I was showcasing my achievements, my success, my discipline, I was essentially being that male peacock, desperately displaying my feathers, hoping Alice would choose me. But women don't want to be the ones doing the choosing. They want to feel chosen. They want to feel like they're the ones being evaluated, being selected by a man who has options. Every time I mentioned my promotion, my gym routine, my accomplishments, I was unconsciously communicating. Please pick me. Look at all the reasons you should choose me. And that was killing attraction before it even had a chance to grow. The night everything changed started innocently enough. Alice came over for our usual Thursday movie night. I had wine chilled, her favorite takeout ordered, everything planned perfectly. Then Jake stumbled out of his room in a wrinkled t-shirt and basketball shorts. "Oh hey, you must be the famous Alice," he said, barely glancing at her before heading to the kitchen. Not impressed by her beauty, not trying to win her over. Just indifferent. I watched Alice's posture change. She straightened up, started playing with her hair. "So you're Stefan's roommate," she said, and there was something in her voice I'd never heard when she talked to me. A slight nervousness, like she was trying to make a good impression. Jake shrugged. "Yeah, poor guy's stuck with me until I figure my life out." He grabbed a beer, offered her one. "You seem too smart to be hanging around with this overachiever," he said, nodding at me with a grin. She laughed, but it wasn't the polite laugh she gave my jokes. It was genuine, almost relieved. What I witnessed over the next hour was the most brutal education in attraction I never wanted to receive. Jake was doing everything wrong by conventional dating advice. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't showcasing his value. Hell, he barely had any value to showcase by society's standards. But here's what he was doing that I completely missed. He was selecting her. When she made a joke, he'd pause, look at her like he was deciding if it was actually funny. When she talked about her job, he'd listen with this slight smile, like he was evaluating whether she was worth his time. He never once tried to prove himself to her. Instead, every interaction communicated, "I'm deciding if you're interesting enough to keep my attention." And Alice was eating it up. She was trying to be funnier, more charming, more impressive. She was doing the peacock dance for him. 3 weeks later, I heard them laughing in his room. loud enough that I couldn't ignore it, intimate enough that I knew what it meant. I sat in my perfectly organized apartment, surrounded by all my achievements, all my success, and I felt more worthless than I'd ever felt in my life. The woman I'd fallen for had chosen the guy with nothing over the guy with everything. But the worst part? The absolutely soul-crushing part. She felt guilty about it. The next morning, she cornered me in the hallway. "Stefan, I'm so sorry. You're such an amazing guy. Any woman would be lucky to have you. You're going to make someone so happy someday." The friendzone speech. After everything I'd built, everything I'd achieved, everything I'd worked for, I was getting the "you're such a great guy" speech from the woman I loved, while she was sleeping with my unemployed roommate. That night, I did something I hadn't done since I was 12 years old. I cried. Not just tears. I sobbed like my world was ending. Because in many ways, it was. But sometimes you have to break completely before you can rebuild correctly. 2 days later, Jake found me on the couch at 3 a.m., staring at nothing. "Rough night?" he asked. I looked at this guy who had everything I wanted with none of what I thought mattered, and I asked the question that changed my life. "What did you do differently?" "Bro, I didn't do anything." "That's the point. You were trying so hard to win her over that you forgot to decide if she was worth winning over. She kept talking about how impressive you are, how successful, how disciplined. But she never felt like you were impressed by her. Like, she could have been any woman, and you would have been just as eager to show off your achievements. With me, I was genuinely curious about whether she was interesting, whether she was funny, whether she was worth my time. And that made her want to prove herself to me. In that moment, everything clicked. Every rejection, every "let's just be friends," every woman who seemed interested then disappeared. It all made perfect sense. Here's what I finally understood about female psychology. Women want to feel special, not because of what you've achieved, but because you chose them specifically. When I was showcasing my success, I was essentially saying, "Look at all these reasons any woman should want me." But what women actually want to feel is, this successful, high-value man looked at all his options and chose me specifically. It's not about hiding your achievements. It's about making your achievements the background, not the foreground. The message should be, "I'm successful enough to have choices, and I'm choosing you, if you're worth choosing." The difference is subtle, but changes everything. I didn't change my personality. I didn't become a different person. I didn't start acting like a jerk or playing games. But I changed my entire approach to dating. Instead of hoping women would choose me based on my achievements, I started evaluating whether they were worth my time and attention. Instead of trying to impress them with what I'd accomplished, I became genuinely curious about what made them impressive. The first time I tried this new approach was with Zoe, a teacher I met at a coffee shop. Instead of mentioning my job, my car, my travels, I asked her about her students. What made teaching rewarding? What kind of kids did she connect with most? And something magical happened. She started lighting up, talking about her passion, trying to make me laugh with stories about her classroom. She was performing for me. When she asked what I did for work, I gave a brief answer and immediately shifted back to learning about her. "That's nice," she said about my career. "But tell me more about why you chose this coffee shop. Do you come here often?" She was trying to find commonalities, trying to figure out if we might run into each other again. She was hoping I'd want to see her again. For the first time in years, I felt what it was like to be the one being pursued instead of doing the pursuing. Within 3 months, everything changed. Not because I became a different person, but because I finally understood the game I was supposed to be playing. Zoe and I dated for 6 months. It was the first relationship where I felt truly wanted, not just accepted. After Zoe, there was Lisa, the lawyer who laughed at all my jokes and texted me first. Then Amanda, the graphic designer who brought me homemade cookies on our 3rd date because she wanted to do something nice for me. These weren't different women. I was just finally interacting with them the way that created attraction instead of killing it. The irony? All my achievements, the career, the fitness, the success, they mattered more than ever. But now they were context, not content. They gave me the confidence to choose rather than hope to be chosen. Here's the ultimate truth about female psychology that most men never learn. Women are attracted to men who act like they have options, not men who act like they need to be chosen. When you showcase your achievements hoping to be selected, you're communicating scarcity. You're saying, "Please choose me because look at all these reasons why you should." But when your achievements are just quiet confidence in the background while you evaluate her worthiness, you're communicating abundance. You're saying, I'm successful enough to be choosy, and I'm being choosy about you. 6 months later, Alice and Jake broke up. Apparently, once she'd won him over, the challenge was gone. The dynamic that created the attraction had disappeared. She reached out to me. I made a mistake, Stefan. You're the kind of man a woman should want to be with long-term. But here's the thing. I wasn't the same man anymore. I looked at Alice and realized I was no longer trying to win her approval. I was genuinely evaluating whether she was worth my time. Alice, I said, I appreciate that. But I'm seeing someone who appreciates what I bring to the table without me having to prove it to her. The woman who had rejected me when I was desperate for her approval suddenly wanted me back when I no longer needed her validation. That's when I knew I'd finally understood the game. The mistake that makes women reject you isn't being unsuccessful. It isn't being unattractive. It isn't even being boring. The mistake is hoping to be chosen instead of doing the choosing. If you've been struggling with dating, if you've been getting friend-zoned, if women seem interested, then suddenly go cold. Ask yourself this question. Are you trying to prove you're worthy of their choice, or are you evaluating whether they're worthy of yours? The answer to that question will change everything. But knowing this is just the beginning. Actually implementing this mindset shift, overcoming years of conditioning, learning to read women's signals and pass their tests, that requires a complete system. Listen, I know what it's like to be the guy who does everything right on paper but still gets rejected. I know the pain of watching women choose men who seem to have less to offer. I know what it feels like to be told, you're such a great guy, while feeling completely invisible to the women you actually want. That's why I want to share something that completely transformed not just my dating life, but my entire relationship with confidence and personal power. How I finally stopped being the friend zone guy, without changing my personality. This isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about becoming the version of yourself that women actually find irresistible. With one simple move, you can. Stop losing women that initially liked you, because you couldn't play the game. Re-enter the dating scene with confidence, at any age. Pass each and every one of women's secret tests. Unlock the Scrambler is the only system that combines eliminating the nice guy behavior ingrained in so many men with the most cutting-edge discoveries of modern psychology. So you can gain the attraction of women, project personal power, and avoid the let's just be friends speech for good. This isn't available everywhere, and it's not for everyone. But if you're tired of being the guy who's perfect on paper but invisible in person, if you're ready to finally understand what creates real attraction, then click the link below. Stop hoping to be chosen. Start doing the choosing. Click the link below, and let's get started.